Hey everybody, today is June 23rd, 2018, and my volume level was a little bit high. Thanks for watching. This is the 17th edition of the weekly Gematrinator podcast. My name is Derek, author and webmaster of www.gematrinator.com. Now, if you're wondering what we talk about on this channel, if you're watching the live stream on YouTube, this will also be archived, of course, on my YouTube channel. So I have two YouTube channels, one under the name Gematrinator85, and the other under the name Derek Tikori, which is my real name. So I stream on Derek Tikori because I don't have a strike on this channel. And that's where most of my educational videos are. However, I've been using both channels for a lot of videos lately. Maybe poorly advised, but what can you do? So the reason I have a strike is because I'm exposing occulted knowledge that's been hidden by the secret societies that run the mainstream media and fabricate fake news stories. They run the media, they run the police, and ultimately lying to us on a daily basis. And the deception goes a lot farther than just one or two false flags. This is happening every single day on a nationwide level. And what you need to understand about this is that they're using the language of Gematria, which is the practice of coding numbers into words. So these are the four base ciphers, and these are the ones that I focus on most in my work. The most simple cipher is English ordinal. This is also called simple Gematria. You simply assign a number to each letter in the alphabetic order 1 through 26. The order can also be reversed so that Z equals 1 and A equals 26. We also have these two reduction methods called full reduction and reverse full reduction, where every double-digit number is reduced to a single digit. This is also called Pythagorean Gematria. You may also hear us refer to this as the small way. And this is the system that our mainstream media is using to essentially lie to us and fabricate fake news stories. So as we go through this show, we'll be covering about 15 or so different stories from the past week that were orchestrated by the numbers, and this includes celebrity deaths. So we'll talk about the death of rapper XXX Tentacion, as well as Jimmy Wopo, who was shot and killed the same day. Very important date. I predicted that something big might happen, and absolutely, we got the death of two big-name rappers in two different cities on the same day. And we'll talk about how this was constructed by the numbers. So first of all, let's talk about the number 3 news story of the week by the numbers. This was a story about Dunkin' Donuts, who comes out of Massachusetts and now has donut stores all over the frickin' country. Here we always had like 1 or 2 Dunkin' Donuts in Milwaukee, and then recently they added about 30 or 40 of these things. And in Gematria, Dunkin' Donuts is really interesting because in both the English extended and Jewish methods, which are the other two primary forms of Gematria I teach on this channel, you'll notice these two methods produce much larger numbers. Instead of numbering them 1 through 26, they're numbered 1 through 9, 10 through 90, increasing by 10, and then 100 through 800, increasing by 100. The Jewish cipher is based on Latin and essentially uses the Latin alphabetic order with the more modern English characters placed at the end. And I like these ciphers because there's a lot less chance for coincidence with them. And notice the Gematria of Dunkin' Donuts in these two methods. Using English extended, it sums to 1147, and in Jewish Gematria, 787. And this is interesting because Freemasonry, which is primarily responsible for giving us our fake news, it's really the most ubiquitous secret society in this nation, which was founded on the principles of Freemasonry. Remember, Freemasonry started in England, and it was England that ruled over America in its early stages. So Freemasonry sums to, well, United Kingdom, not necessarily England, but moving on. Freemasonry sums to 787 in Jewish, and also 1147 English extended, the same two numbers. This also includes the reverse alphabetic order, where Freemasonry and Dunkin' Donuts both sum to 158. This Dunkin' Donuts is in Baltimore, Maryland, in the reverse reduction method, sums to 105, just like Masonry. But here's the real clue of this story. This story is all about a sign that was put on a cash register telling customers they would get a free coupon if they called and tattled on any employees who were not speaking English. And just think of the absurdity of putting this sign in place in the first place. You know, what kind of person would do this? And that's the whole idea, is to rile you up, keep people divided. What is your opinion on this sign? Are you, how against it are you? Or do you think it's okay for businesses to do this? They want people bickering like this. And really, I don't know anybody who would think that this sign is appropriate, but what the news does is create this reality in which there are two sides with this type of vitriol behind it. Trust me when I say the support for this type of profiling is very low. Now, the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, in the highest degree of Masonry, is the 33rd degree. The word masonry, the small way, sums to 33. And this sign, if you actually take the entire sign and drop it in the Gematria calculator as it's written here in the article and as it's written on the sign, you find, first of all, that it's 33 words long, right? So we already have one nod to masonry. Now, when you write out the number 33 in Gematria, first of all, you get an ordinal value of 156. And using the reverse order, you get 141. Well, this sign is 141 letters, and in the alphabetic order, it sums to 1,560, a lot like 156. So fuck you, Dunkin' Donuts, and, for participating in this bullshit propaganda. Another thing I want to point out is the headline. In the reverse alphabetic order, it sums to 1,081. And first of all, this is the 46th triangular number. Add up every number, 1 through 46, and it sums to 1,081. As you can see here, 1,081, the 46th triangular. And Dunkin' Donuts, initials DD. This is 46 in the reverse order, the same method. One thing that's important to note about numerology and gematria, when we're looking at the results of these phrases and words, the zeros are dropped. So this then reflects a 181. And 181, this is the 42nd prime number. 181, the 42nd prime number. We're going to talk about this relationship a fair amount, actually, in this podcast, especially when we get into the sports section. And in Gematria, the word Freemason sums to 42 in the reduction method. The number 2 news story of the week by the numbers. Israeli Prime Minister's wife, Sarah Netanyahu, charged with fraud, breach of trust, as stated in the headline. And we'll talk about why this particularly was the charge. And Sarah Netanyahu, not the most attractive wife of a foreign leader, kind of troll looking. And this story is indeed a troll, I believe, on the public. Could be part of the organic matrix, but I think you'll be scratching your head by the time we get through this decode. The whole story here is that Sarah Netanyahu paid like $40,000 of public tax money, or even more than that, on meals for her and her guests. And their claim is that, it wasn't her that placed the orders. It doesn't really matter. She's innocent. It wasn't her fault. And, you got to love it when people play this card, right? Like, it wasn't my responsibility. I delegated that responsibility to someone else, and they screwed up, so it wasn't my fault. Well, she's still in charge. These mistakes are still pretty glaring. And it turns out this was definitely all by the numbers. Now, to start with, Benjamin and Sarah Netanyahu, if you measure between their birthdays, find it interesting that there's a span of 3,303 days. A lot of threes, most certainly. And in the reverse reduction method, the name Sarah sums to 33. Now, the 33rd prime number is 137, and Sarah Netanyahu, her birthday is November 5th, written internationally as 5/11, like Saturn. Anyways, so yeah, her birthday, November 5th, this story comes out 137 days before that. Again, 137, the 33rd prime number. Interesting, too, that in Gematria, fraud, breach of trust sums to 1016. And this is an upside-down 911, which is a number that's commonly coded into news and propaganda from Israel. Star of David, using the alphabetic order, the name of their flag, sums to 119. This is representative of Saturn, the all-seeing eye, 119. In fact, Saturn in Francis Bacon Gematria, which uses capital letters, Saturn summing to 119 in this method. And this also gives you a connection between America and Israel. The Star-Spangled Banner is our flag. That, too, also summing to 119, this time in reverse reduction. The word Orthodox in the alphabetic order, 119, Israel home to many Orthodox Jews. Interesting, too, that the number 119, when you look at the factorization, 119 has a prime factorization of 7 times 17. And Sarah Netanyahu, 7 months, 17 days, with the end date included after her birthday. So we mentioned how her birth date is the 5th of November, like 5/11, the planet Saturn, 5/11. I find it appropriate that she's married to Benjamin Netanyahu. So Saturn, using the alphabetic order, 93 and 69 reverse. Well, Benjamin Netanyahu equals 69 reduction and 93 reverse reduction. Speaking of the number 69, like in reduction for Benjamin Netanyahu and Saturn, the name Sarah in the reverse alphabetic order equals 69. So what a pairing, right? A Saturnian couple ruling over the state of Israel. It's very ideal. In fact, Sarah's birth numerology, we call this the full numerology of a date. 11 plus 5 plus 19 plus 58, summing to 93, just like Saturn in the alphabetic order. Now, Saturn and the Moon are closely connected, as I've demonstrated quite frequently, and this really comes down to the orbital periods. 29 and a half days for the Moon, 29 and a half years for Saturn, and these are connected in many ways. Well, the Moon in Greek summing to 309. Now, Sarah was born on the 309th day of the year, November 5th, on a date with a life lesson number of 39. And using the standard alphabetic order, the name Sarah equals 39. S, the 19th letter. R, the 18th letter, with 2 A's, the first. Sum them together, you get 39. And if you measure from May 14th, which is the anniversary on the Gregorian calendar of Israel's independence, it's been 39 days, with the end date included, since that date. So this story about Sarah equals 39, born on the 309th day of the year with 39 numerology, the story coming 39 days after Israel's independence. And this is how they do it, releasing everything, literally, by the numbers like this. And this brings us to our number one news by the numbers story of the week. You may have seen another Twitter battle featuring a Trump, and this time Kathy Griffin also. And Kathy Griffin's sticking her weaselly neck into the news every so often. And every time it happens, it's always done by the numbers, just like as it is with everybody, as I expose on this channel all the flippin' time. So the name Kathy Griffin, in the alphabetic order, this sums to 134. Here she's getting in a spat with Melania Trump. She's not even spelling her name correctly. She's putting F-U Melanie for some reason. But the name Melania in the reverse alphabetic order equals 134. And again, Kathy Griffin getting in a spat with Melania Trump. I noticed the headline that Fox gave us for this. And again, I don't go picking for headlines. I don't go fishing for them. I just find the first one and then decode that headline because every headline is going to have relevant numbers. This one did as well. If you take this bottom part of it outside the quote from Kathy Griffin, in the reverse alphabetic order, Kathy Griffin triggers backlash over profanity-laced tirade at Melania Trump. This sums to 1,048. Now, in numerology, this reflects the number 148. And prime number relationships are so significant to this study, as I commonly talk about. The 148th prime number is 857. And this is a very significant number to the numerology of the cycles of the moon. But check this out. Her full name, Kathleen Mary Griffin, in Jewish Gematria, summing to 857. So coding a roundabout significant number into the headlines. And this is a number I teach about. It syncs up days with, synodic months with Earth rotations and node passages. It also syncs up multiple cycles, like sidereal months and synodic months. Anyway, this is also about the number 113, which we commonly talk about is the number of deception, the number of dishonesty. This comes from Baba Kama 113 of the Talmud. And all of these words that have to do with honesty, lying, all summing to 113 in either the standard or reverse alphabetic order. Well, it just so happens that there's 113 months between the birthdays of Melania Trump and Kathy Griffin. And in the reverse alphabetic order, her full name, Kathleen Mary Griffin, equals 311, which is the same in that same method as the number for dishonesty. And this phrase gives us a 113 and its inverse, 311. Now, this 113 stands out. The 113th prime number is 617. There you have it. And the date that this became headline news was June 17th, written 6/17. They even coded this into the headline, Kathy Griffin unleashes profanity-laced tirade at Melania Trump. F you, Melanie. Well, in reduction gematria, this sums to 311. Now, in addition to relating dates on the calendar in with the gematria of these phrases, the time on the clock is also significant. So we're talking about the number 113 being dishonest. NASA, perhaps one of the most dishonest organizations of all time, founded on a date with 113 numerology. The space shuttle that blew up, Columbia, was the 113th launch. The Challenger disaster occurred a minute and 13 seconds into its launch, or 73 seconds. So yeah, 1 minute and 13 seconds on a clock is 73 seconds. And measuring from Melania's last birthday on April 26th to this date is 7 weeks and 3 days. And perhaps coincidentally, Kathy Griffin's hometown, Oak Park, also summing to 73. Oak Park, Illinois, 73 the small way. Kathy Griffin's full name, using standard reduction, sums to 103, and this number reflects the number 13 in numerology. 13 being our primary hoax ritual code. This story, no doubt, just another numeric riddle to divide the people. Kathy Griffin, currently 7 months, 13 days after her birthday, and if you turn every single number upside down in 713, you would get the word lie. The word lie flipped upside down would be 317, and this applies in Gematria as well. Whether or not this is a coincidence, I don't know, but they certainly do use this number to lie to us a lot. Kathy Griffin also 140 days before her birthday, Kathleen summing to 140. On the other hand, Melania is 313 days before her next birthday. And in Gematria, Well, yeah, Kathy summing to 65, alphabetic order. The 65th prime number is 313. Also, if you look at their birthdays and just look at the number of days between them, you'll find that there's 6 months, 9 days between their birthdays. The name Griffin equals 69. And if you actually measure the exact number of days, you get 3,460. And I like this number because it's the Bavarian Illuminati in the reverse alphabetic order, 346. And at first, I wasn't going to put this in my post. I said this might be a coincidence, even though I know that number means something. But then I noticed that they called her liberal comedian Kathy Griffin to start the article. Liberal comedian Kathy Griffin. And I said, oh my lord, look at the Gematria. This is 1,445 in English extended. The Bavarian Illuminati. Summing to 1,445 the same frickin' way. I was like, holy cow. I mean, I guess it can't be a coincidence. There's just no way. I mean, we know they love to code the Bavarian Illuminati garbage in there, especially on a date for Lion like this. Even if you decode the gematria of the tweet, you get 393 in reduction. And in Jewish gematria, which I commonly say might be the most significant cipher, the word president equals 393. And I love this because remember when Robert De Niro got up there and started cussing at Donald Trump? I mean, look at this guy. He just looks goofy doing it, doesn't he? Well, this was all by the numbers. He was 3,903 weeks old, making fun of the president, which sums to 393. Griffin's birth date of November 4th, written 114. In Gematria, First Lady equals 114. And her tweet sums to 1,014 in the same method, just the standard alphabetic order, simple Gematria. In the reverse order, her tweet sums to 1,308, so you get a 138 sequence. And that's the ordinal Gematria of Donald Trump. It's just perfect. In the alphabetic order, just the name Trump alone sums to 88. And this story comes a span of 88 days after Kathy Griffin posed with that Trump head. Remember the severed Trump head that was there? Yeah, 88 days after that. And now she's attacking another Trump. So think about that. She's attacking both Trumps 88 days apart. And Trump summing to 88. It's just ridiculous. So, with that, the number one news by the numbers story of the week. Let's change tunes a little bit and talk about this art festival shooting in Trenton, New Jersey. I don't know for sure if this was some sort of hoax. I definitely believe this to be a false flag, something that was staged, something that was crafted. And we're going to talk about why. So today is June 23rd. Well, tomorrow is June 24th, and that's an important day because it's Freemasonry's anniversary. The premier Grand Lodge of England was founded on June 24th, 1717. And notice that the date is 3 months, 3 days before the Jesuit order's birthday, the Society of Jesus, founded on September 27th. So it's an appropriate duration even between those two establishments. And this event here was definitely a ritual celebrating Freemasonry's upcoming anniversary, which is the 301st. And 31, this is an important number. Many numbers are important, of course, for various reasons, but the most significant cycle of time is the Metonic cycle. This is the period of 19 years that syncs up with 235 synodic months. Using the alphabetic order, Metonic cycle equals 127. 127 is the 31st prime number. So here we are coming up on the 301st anniversary of the founding of the Premier Lodge of England. And 1331 being the number that signifies a total solar eclipse. If you write out 1331 eclipse in Gematria, you get 1331. Freemasonry founded by the numbers of the eclipse. The big false flag shooting so far this year was the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas shooting, and that happened 130 days before this 301st anniversary. So you have that 1331 combination. Moving on. First of all, this occurred on the date June 17th, just after midnight. This has a life lesson number 6 plus 17 plus 2 plus 1 plus 8 of 34. And in Gematria, using the reduction method, Trenton equals 34. Now, the 34th prime number is 139. And this is the ordinal Gematria of Freemasonry. Freemasonry summing to 139. As far as this number 113, Trenton, New Jersey, sums to 113 in the reverse alphabetic order, the number of dishonesty. In the standard alphabetic order, Trenton, New Jersey, again with the New Jersey abbreviated, summing to 130, like the number 13, our ritual code. So what I realize is that this had everything to do with the new governor of New Jersey. The new governor of New Jersey is Phil Murphy. And what a mug on this guy. I mean, he is just ugly as sin. Looks like a beaver or something. And I don't mean to make fun of people just for their appearance, but he's a globalist piece of trash that's sitting in a high office who's been placed there just so he can oversee the false flag operations that occur under his watch. And let me explain to you how this works. First of all, measuring from Governor Phil Murphy's date of birth on August 16th, 1957 to the date of this shooting is exactly 22,220 days old. Again, 22,220 days old. And when it comes to Freemasonry, they consider themselves master builders. Using the alphabetic order, master builder number equals 220, and the master builder number is 22. It's a number that represents a foundation. 2 plus 2 is 4, 4 being the number of foundation, and we know all about Euclid's 47th problem, which is about establishing foundation. So this is a pretty significant number to begin with. And as far as the 22,220, consider that they were saying that 22 people were shot in this shooting. I've seen various reports mentioning 20 being shot, but either way, master builder number 22 and 20, both of these numbers in it. But this is definitely more about the number 22. And this is reflected in the name of the people arrested. So let me find my post here. Arrests in the shooting. Let's see. Here we go. There were actually 2 arrests. There was one shooter, but another man was arrested on weapons charges. And you're starting to see this more and more often now. More people getting arrested for weapons charges. Because, you know, the gun control philosophy, it's real, and it's definitely making its creep on this nation. You know, any ground they gain is ground lost forever. So, again, 22 people, as they were reporting the next day when they announced the arrests. And the first guy's name is Tahaj, or Tahaji, I don't know. Tahaj, in the reduction method, sums to 22. The other man arrested was named Amir Mir Armstrong. They made sure to let us know that his nickname was Mir. And in the same method, Mir equals 22. So what are the odds of this? Two guys named 22, or with 22 Gematria, the governor 22,220 days old, and they shoot 22 people at the art festival. This is just a primary example of news by the numbers. I also noted this really weird subheader on CNN where somebody was quoted as saying it was pretty gnarly. You know, strange thing to say about a mass shooting scene, right? Well, it was pretty gnarly sums to 253. And 253 is the 22nd triangular number. it's over the top coded in this case, I believe. In the headline they gave us for this article announcing the arrest, in the alphabetic order, it sums to 1002. This guy's name, Tahej Wells, sums to 120 in the same alphabetic order. Remember, this was all to celebrate Masonry, Tahej Wells equaling 39 in reduction, Masonry summing to 39 reverse reduction, and then you have these exception ciphers where Tahej Wells summing to the same as Freemason. This other guy, how about this, right? Amir Armstrong, the one arrested on weapons charges, his name sums to 166 and 185 reverse. Secret Society also shares these same exact two numbers. If you instead substitute in his nickname, Mir Armstrong, you get 165 and 159 reverse, which is the same as Scottish Rite. So this man stamped with the numbers of Freemasonry as well, and in fact, in reduction, Amir Armstrong 67, just like Freemasonry using the S exception. So we mentioned how this occurred on the date June 17th, written 617. 617, the 113th prime number. Trenton, New Jersey, summing to 113. This man's name, Tahej, also 113 in the reverse alphabetic order. And as far as his last name is concerned, it sums to 17, 26, and 28. That's the same as Mason, 17, 26, and 28 in those same methods. But there's a little bit more on this story I want to talk about, actually. It's Freemasonry's 301st anniversary coming up. And look at where this shooting occurred. Roebling Wireworks building in the alphabetic order equals 301. In reduction, it sums to 139. Again, Freemasonry, 139 alphabetic order. And this all occurred on a date with a life lesson number of 34, 139, the 34th prime number. One more look at the governor. The governor just turned 730 months old, like just a little bit before this shooting occurred, a day earlier. And using prime numbers, which is a cipher that takes into account, it's basically the alphabetic order, but instead of 1 through 26, you use the associated prime numbers, the 1st through the 26th primes. And in this cipher, Art All Night Trenton equals 73, this being a number of sacrifice. Sorry, 730 in primes. Phil Murphy's birthday, August 16th, the 228th day of the year. Using the alphabetic order, Art All Night Trenton, summing to 228. There's a little bit more to this. Feel free to check out my post. The last thing I'll mention on this is, again, this will be Freemasonry's 301st birthday, and this shooting is a span of 301 days after the total solar eclipse. So that explains why, again, Roebling Wireworks building, summing to 301 in the alphabetic order. Shortly after going off the air last week, found out about this news story about a man who was on the Hoover Dam Bridge. And this was actually either the same day or a day after there was a shooting in Kansas City, Kansas. Remember, a police officer was killed outside of a courthouse in Kansas City, Kansas last week. And remarkably, I noticed the same numbers in these two stories. So in the last story, the one about the police officer getting killed, it was Officer Patrick Rohrer. In the reverse alphabetic order, his name summing to 191, and 191 is the 43rd prime number. And interesting that he died in Kansas City, Kansas, which using the reduction method equals 43. Well, what do you know? Here we have the same thing. Now we have a story from Hoover Dam, which sums to 43. And this time using the alphabetic order, Matthew P. Wright, the name of the gunman who shut the bridge down, his name summing to 191. Also interesting that in the reverse order, his name is 187, just like Kansas City, Kansas, in the alphabetic order, 187. Both 191 and 187, these are numbers of the Society of Jesus. So this gunman with the same exact gematria in ordinal and reverse. If you add the word "the" to the Society of Jesus, you get 224. And this is significant, I believe. Jesus the Messiah summing to 224. Now, this happened on the Mike O'Callahan Pat Tillman Memorial Bridge, and in the reverse reduction method, this sums to 224. In fact, in Francis Bacon, with capital letters, Hoover Dam Bridge, summing to 224 as well. So this seems to be all about the Jesuit order. Looking again at the name of the gunman, Matthew P. Wright, in reduction, his name summing to 74. Jesus equals 74, alphabetic order. He died on the cross. Messiah, 74. Gospel, 74. The 74th prime number is 373. And this event occurred a span of 37 weeks and 3 days after the Jesuit order's anniversary. As far as the headline goes, they coded the date numerology. Actually, it was June 15th, the 166th day of the year. In the reverse alphabetic order, the headline summed to 1066. They also managed to code the number of days left in the year in the headline. They gave us a 661 in the Jewish method, dropped to an ordinal base, and it was the 199th day of the year, which is 661 upside down. So this is the kind of thing they do. We'll look more at headline gematria as this goes. You know, I finished a lot of my posts pointing at the gematria of the headline just to show exactly how they're aware of, you know, this system of letters and numbers. So, speaking of shootings and gunmen, we got one more story to look at. This time, it's a shooting at Walmart. And you just got to love these stories they give us. A man, you know, gets carjacked, and what's the first thing you do when you jack a car, right? You don't floor it and drive as fast as you can. You just go to Walmart and then just shoot random people, apparently. That's the new thing. So because one felony isn't enough, he, carjacking, you might get out of jail one day. Mass shooting at a Walmart, nah, that'll do you in. But here's what's funny about this story. So I'm going to go to Google Translate here and just show you. The word for kill in the Hebrew is 244 in Hebrew Gematria. And look at how old Walmart was on the date of the shooting, 20,440 days old. What a freaking perfect day. Using the alphabetic order, kill summing to 44. And this kind of ties to the number 244 if you kind of think about it. In the reduction method, shooting equals 44 as well. And what do you know? The shooter in this case, 44 years old. Just like kill, which was incorporated into the gematria, or the age of Walmart. The date of the shooting, same date as the Trenton Festival, life lesson number of 34. The 34th prime number, 139. This story coming to us from Tacoma, Washington, with the state abbreviated Tacoma, Washington equaling 139. The date of the shooting also had full numerology of 61. And think about this. We had all these situations with an active shooter. Active shooter equals 61 in reduction. This just seems to be the theme. Something I realized about the number 617, the date June 17th, I don't look at this cipher too often, but I do believe it to be one of the more significant reverse ciphers. And just think about the fact that it's a satanic Gematria cipher. Satanists supposedly record their music backwards and shit. So this cipher just it's a logical reverse cipher. Well, in this method, metonic cycle equals 617, right? Like the date 617. And the date June 17th leaves 197 days in the year. And in the reverse alphabetic order, metonic cycle equaling 197. Remember, the metonic cycle is a period of 19 years, which sums to 197. And this highlights the moon's synchronous orbit with the Earth, which also sums to 197. In standard satanic gematria, moon sums to 197. So it's appropriate for this to be, this date to have a big moon tribute. As far as synchronous orbit, summing to 235, alphabetic order, this is the number of synodic months in the metonic cycle. This story coming out of Tacoma, Washington, which has a 235 in the Francis Bacon gematria. And again, Francis Bacon, again, just based on the alphabetic order, but with capital letters taken into account. So we saw how the shooting at Trenton on the same date was in the Roebling Wireworks building, which sums to 301. It's Freemasonry's 301st anniversary. We'll check out Tacoma, Washington in the alphabetic order. It sums to 183. And when you write out 301, you also get 183. So, of course, they're not going to put the number 301 in both of the cities. You don't want to make it so painfully obvious. So these are all numeric riddles that we're being given here. Also, Tacoma, Washington, remember we looked at Francis Bacon, where it sums to 235. Well, look at reverse Francis Bacon, 301. And again, this is another cipher I don't look at very often, but it's interesting that both Bacon methods here come into play, doesn't it? Scottish Rite of Freemasonry summing to 143, reverse reduction. Tacoma, Washington, in Jewish gematria, 1430. And check this out. The name of the shooter, Tim O'Day. His name equals 33 and 39 in the reduction methods. This is the same as Masonry, 39 and 33. Also, Tim O'Day in the alphabetic order equaling 87. So once again, here we have a shooter whose name matches the gematria of the city, Tacoma, Washington, 87. And also in this method, 301, summing to 87. It's just perfect for Freemasonry's 301st birthday. There's some more about this. There's a little tiny riddle with the governor here in this one. The governor's name is J. Inslee, and we mentioned how Masonry shares the 143 with Tacoma, Washington. Well, the governor of Washington, his name sums to 143 in the reverse alphabetic order. And, in Hebrew gematria, the word for circle equals 143. Now, to get the circle, we use pi being 3.14. In Jewish gematria, 3.14, summing to 888. The governor, whose name has matching gematria with circle, was 808 months and 8 days old on the date of this shooting. So there's a lot of locations that have 301 gematria, or some to the same as 301 to celebrate their birthday, but not all of them are in a state with the governor with this riddle, you know what I mean? So they definitely throw multiple criteria in there, I think, to select these locations. Oh, allergies are rough again this week. I'm telling you, it's been raining every single day. All right, so I wanted to touch a little bit on this immigration issue that's really dominated the news this week. In fact, it's been difficult to find like news stories to decode because all they're talking about really is immigration. And I was watching a video of Blackstone Intelligence, and Jake casually mentioned that June 18th, this past Monday, when this started to become major news, that was the anniversary of the Naturalization Act of 1798. It was signed into effect on June 18th. And of course, he mentioned it, casually, like, hey, what do you know? Well, this is what the news does all the time. They always bring issues back by the numbers based on history. Now, what's funny is that if you measure from the date that Naturalization Act was signed on 1798 to this year, 2018, you get exactly 220 years. And in Gematria, Donald John Trump equals 220 in the reverse order. And this is all about Trump causing a big ruckus. Donald Trump is president number 45. The 45th prime number is 197, as you can see on the screen. 45th prime, 197. And in the reverse alphabetic order, naturalization equals 197. And what do you know? This is a big topic for his presidency. In fact, another thing I wanted to point out is that Naturalization Act equals 205, and Trump equals 25 in reduction. Yeah, that's kind of a minor one. But here's why it was signed into action back in the year 1798 on the date June 18th. So June 18th on the Gregorian calendar is the 169th day of the year. In the reverse alphabetic order, immigration equals 169. And this act added 9 years onto the residency requirement in order for someone to apply to become a U.S. citizen. Now this year, June 18th, 2018, you can get the date numerology 6 plus 18 plus 18. This equals 42. And as we saw earlier, the 42nd prime number is 181. And in the standard alphabetic order, naturalization equals 181. I also noticed that illegal immigrants has this same gematria, 181. Using the alphabetic order Naturalization Act of 1798, when you look at the numbers, you just add 1 plus 7 plus 9 plus 8. It sums to 251. And that's the same in the reverse order as immigration policy. Maybe that's a coincidence. It is interesting that 251 is the 54th prime number, and in reduction, illegal alien sums to 54. And that was the problem as it was phrased at the time back in the 1700s. They were more frequently called illegal aliens, to my understanding anyway. I wasn't around back then. And what's interesting about this act is that after it was signed in 1798, it was actually repealed in 1802, a little under 4 years later. And if you look at the time span that this law was in effect, it was 3 years and 300 days, like 33. So maybe back then even this was some sort of agenda in place. As far as the number 33, aliens equals 33 in single reduction. When the Naturalization Act was signed in 1798, it had a full date numerology of 139. In the reverse alphabetic order, immigrant 139. The date it was repealed was April 14th, the 104th day of the year, and using the standard order, immigrant equals 104. So we've mentioned this 42-181 combination. The number 42 significant from the Bible and the story of Jesus. And this brings us to a major Jesus riddle that occurred in Major League Baseball yesterday. For the first time since the expansion era began in 1961, a player accomplished both of the following in a game. First, he broke up a no-hitter in the 6th inning or later with a home run to not just end the no-hit bid, but to also put his team on the board. And then also later hit a second home run that went for a walk-off. So here in this game, Jesus Aguilar homered in the 7th inning to tie the game, end the no-hitter. He came up in his next at-bat in the 9th inning and hit a home run to end the game. This has never happened before since 1961. And first of all, the year 61, that's interesting because Jesus equals 61 in the reverse alphabetic order. But as I expose on this blog quite frequently is that the Milwaukee Brewers are the moon team of the major leagues. And here we have another tribute to the moon, this time involving the story of Jesus. And we'll explain why. This will blow your mind, actually, I think. Moon using the reduction method sums to 21, by the way. The Brewers won this game by a score of 2-1. But that's pretty minor compared to everything else I'm about to show you. So, to begin, the story of Jesus occurs in the New Testament. In the reduction method, New Testament equals 42. Now, the New Testament begins with 42 generations to Jesus, and the first King James Bibles printed with 42 lines per page. The score of this game was 2-1. The number 21 also equals 42 in Gematria, and of course 42 is 21 times 2. You may notice that Jesus Aguilar, who's on the right here on the top right of the screen, he wears number 24, which is the inverse of 42. The name of the pitcher who was throwing the no-hitter that Jesus Aguilar came up and ended, his name sums to 204 in the reverse order, Jack Flaherty. So the 42nd prime number, again, is 181. Jesus Aguilar was born on June 30th. That's the 181st day of the year. In the reverse alphabetic order, Jesus Aguilar equals 181. And isn't it interesting because Jesus the Messiah equals 181 in the alphabetic order. And I just really started pointing out this phrase. I think one of my commenters brought this up with me. And the reason I find this to be so very significant is that Jesus the Messiah equals 1331 in Jewish Gematria. And we talk about this being the number that represents a total solar eclipse. Jesus the Messiah died under a solar eclipse. There was one solar eclipse in 1331, and that eclipse occurred on November 30th, which equals 1331. This number is something else. But anyway, what I wanted to mention is that they coded this number into the headline, or this relationship, in fact. So when you punch this in Gematria, history for crew, no game, each end with home runs. In the reverse reduction method, it sums to 181. How about that? Remember, this is the 42nd prime number, and in Jewish ordinal, which is, again, just Latin Gematria, but with an ordinal base 1 through 27. And using this method, it sums to 420, like the number 42. In reduction, you get 204, like the number 24. So it's fascinating stuff. But it gets even better. So using the reverse alphabetic order, back to our standard English Gematria, Jesus Christ equals 146. And on the date of this game, including the end date, Jesus Aguilar was 1,460 weeks old, exactly. This means he was also 1 week, 1 day before his birthday. His birthday this year falling on a date with full numerology of 74. So he's 1 week, 1 day before that birthday. Jesus equals 11 reduction. Jesus equals 74 ordinal. And again, his birthday on a date with 74 numerology. Jesus Christ also equals 74 reverse the small way. And here we were in the Cardinals' 74th game of the season, by the way. In the New Testament, the second coming of Christ is mentioned 318 times. The name Aguilar in Jewish Gematria equals 318. His birthday on a life lesson number of 55, 6 plus 30, plus 1 plus 9 plus 9 plus 0. And in reduction, Jesus the Messiah summing to 55. And also interesting that God equals 55, alphabetic order. Reverse order, I should say. It's Satan that equals 55, ordinal. This also being the value of the word heaven. And as I wrote on my blog here, this is where it gets interesting. Consider that the date was June 22nd, which is written internationally as 22/6. And using the alphabetic order, crucifixion of Jesus equals 226. Now, normally, it's the Jesus character getting the sacrifice in these rituals. But in this case, it's Jesus that succeeds. And certainly, he's going to be set up to fail at some later date, probably in the playoffs, where he's going to blow it for his team or something like that. Now, in this game, the Jesus sacrifice, the ritual that they had to play out for that, actually occurred earlier in the game, back in the first inning. Cardinals center fielder Tommy Pham struck out in the first inning on a called strike 3. The next batter also had a strike called on the first pitch, and right after the pitch, the umpire threw Tommy Pham out of the game. Tommy Pham was in the dugout, and I guess he yelled something at the umpire. So right away, I ran the numbers on this, thanks to my friend. And before I point anything else out, the name Thomas James Pham equals 243 reverse. This is the same as arguing balls and strikes. Ordinal, and that's what he was thrown out for, 243. But here's the riddle here, right? If you look at his date of birth, March 8th, 1988, you find that he was 30 years and 106 days old. In numerology, this is the numbers 316, like 316. John 3:16 says, "For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son." The name Jesus in Hebrew Gematria, summing to 316. And if you measure between the birthdays of Jesus Aguilar and pitcher Jack Flaherty, you get a span of 3 months and 16 days. Now, Tommy Pham being thrown out was symbolic in relation to Jesus Aguilar. If you measure between their birthdays, March 8th, 88 to June 30th, 1990, it's exactly 844 days. In Hebrew Gematria, Revelation equals 844. Jesus crucified under a solar eclipse sacrifice equals 448, the inverse, in English extended. And actually in this method, devil also equals 448. So a little bit more on this guy, Tommy Pham. The name Tommy Pham equals 43, the same as Jesus Christ in reduction. I also noticed that the name Tommy equals 610 in Jewish Gematria. Of course, Jesus equals 61 in reverse. Crucifix equals 610 in Jewish as well. Also, the name Pham, ordinal, sums to 38. He was born on the date 3/8. Tommy Pham in reverse reduction also sums to 38. In Hebrew reduction, the full name for Jesus Christ or Jesus the Messiah is 38. So Pham 38, Tommy Pham 38, born on 3/8. The 38th prime number, 163, there's a span of 16 weeks and 3 days between the birthdays of Jesus Aguilar and Tommy Pham. Tommy Pham was also 3 months, 14 days after his birthday. This is like pi. In Satanic Gematria, eclipse equals 314. So does the name Aguilar. In fact, in 3 of the 4 base ciphers, Eclipse and Aguilar have the same values, 33, 69, and 120. No, I noticed too, when they started the game, they showed Mike Matheny's career record as a manager, and he had just lost his 463rd game the night before against the Brewers. In Jewish Gematria, total eclipse equals 463. Remember, Jesus the Messiah, 1331, crucified under a solar eclipse, and 1331 being our eclipse number. And check out in this cipher, Jesus Aguilar equals 1,303, which is simply a roundabout way of coding 1331, because when you write out 133, you get 1331. There's only 2 numbers, as far as I'm aware, that sum to 1331 in trigonal gematria. There may be more really large numbers, but I doubt it. I'm pretty sure it's just these 2. 35 equals 1331. 38 equals 1331. And the Cardinals came into this game 38 and 35. I know it's a lot. It's just, this is how it's coded, and I just want people to understand. The Brewers, meanwhile, came in with a record of 44 and 30. And the sun in Jewish Gematria equals 443. Measuring from the Great American Solar Eclipse last year in August to the date of this game was 10 months and 1 day. It was Flaherty's 101st pitch that he threw that Jesus Aguilar hit for a home run to tie the game in the 7th inning. Wow, so that went really long, but that was a heavily coded event, and it's just something I happened to see live, too. I was at a friend's house, we were watching the game, and I wasn't even going to run the numbers on the ejection, but my friend, he's not really, into this numerology stuff as far as, like, practicing it himself, but he's got a really good mind for it, and he recognizes when something is happening, like something like this is happening by the code. So sure enough, I looked at the guy's numbers and thought, holy cow, I mean, he's got all the numbers of Jesus in his age, in his birthday, in his name. And then to end the game, we get this story about Jesus Aguilar doing something that no other player has done in history. So, yeah, I mean, you want my opinion, these games are 100% rigged, and I don't know how they're ensuring these balls get out of the ballpark. Maybe they are using some technology, but I guess it could be the Matrix, but I don't know, guys. Something else is going on, I think, for sure. All right, so on the topic of sports, we're a little bit over 1 hour into the podcast. After this Brooks Koepka story, before we talk about the rappers who were killed, I'm going to talk a little bit about what I'm going to be doing in the next few weeks here, about the blog, a little break I'll be taking. First, let's touch on this story about Brooks Koepka, who won the U.S. Open this past week, and he won his 2nd straight U.S. Open. He was the first one, I think, maybe since the 80s, if I remember, to win back-to-back U.S. Opens. In the reverse reduction method, Brooks Koepka sums to 68, and this kind of stands out because the word golf equals 68 in the reverse ordinal method. The 68th prime number is 337. And just before this game, or this tournament, I should say, Brooks Koepka turned 337 months old. Koepka's birth date, 5 plus 3 plus 1 plus 9 plus 9 plus 0. He was born May 3rd, 1990. This sums to 27 with all the digits reduced. And I noticed that U.S. Open equals 27 in both reduction methods. And here he's won back-to-back U.S. Opens. In the alphabetic order, 2018 U.S. Open equals 270. It also has this value in the reverse method. The date that he recorded his victory, again, they had that life lesson number of 34. The 34th prime number, 139, and Brooks Koepka equals 139. So I did make a really bad prediction as far as who was going to win. This had to do with Shane McMahon a long time ago, but yeah, it was pretty wrong. It was very wrong. All right, so I'm going to play a quick tune, take a quick break. I'm going to do a little bit of talking, and we'll wrap this podcast up with a few stories, and we'll end up with history by the numbers. We'll talk about that USA versus Ghana match from 2014 in light of the World Cup currently taking place. All right, I got to find a song here. All right, let's throw this one on. All right, I'll be right back, everyone. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Thanks for sticking around there. Looks like I left the number properties up on the screen a little too long. You know, one of these days I'm going to have a perfect podcast where I don't make any mistakes. And then I might just retire. Let's see. All right. So just to let everybody know, the 18th edition of the podcast will be delayed by a week. There will be no podcast next week. And I'll probably be a little bit slow on the blog. In fact, I'm going to be taking a break for a good chunk of the next couple weeks. I will probably do the podcast in 2 weeks. I may take an additional week of break. It's the summer, a lot going on. Getting some time off of work here, going to work on things around the house. And just kind of ease my mind. I've been doing about 6 months of blogging now. Pretty hardcore. Definitely doing more posts than I was planning on. And a lot has happened since I started the blog. Lost my YouTube channel. I feel like my understanding of this knowledge has gained a lot. So I think it'll be a nice time to kind of just soak in the nice weather, enjoy my time off of work, and just take my mind off the numbers for a little bit. Kind of set feet back in reality a little bit. I still enjoy blogging. I won't be going anywhere, like disappearing anytime soon. But, as I continue this work, a lot of things do feel quite repetitive and redundant as far as the types of stories I decode. So I might just not be covering as many stories in the future just because it's, I feel like I've proved my point to an extent. And, it's a matter of just making sure the knowledge is there so that people can discover it and build on it, and hopefully we can get ahead of what's happening instead of always going back and reverse engineering everything. And honestly, I think the knowledge that I share, and not to take away anything from any other researcher, but the knowledge that I've been kind of discovering and sharing and trying to get people awake to, I think is some of the knowledge that's going to get us to the point where we can get ahead of what's happening. And I think we have a really great example of that this past week. Now, I did not make a post on this. I even said in the email that I sent to my cousin that I should, and he was like, yeah, you should too. But he asked me, what date I had in mind for the next ritual or the next sacrifice or whatever. And this was last Saturday. Let's see, the 16th. It was right after my podcast. And I poked around at a couple future dates, and I was like, wow, this coming Monday actually looks like something pretty serious. And that's because that date was 43 weeks after the solar eclipse. Exactly 43 weeks. Jesus Christ equals 43. And using the alphabetic order, crucifixion of Jesus Christ equals 303. It was 303 weeks before the next eclipse. So I said, not only, might something happen, but it could be something pretty big. And, I think this qualifies because, you got two rappers who a lot of the young generation looks up to. This guy was a #1 selling artist on Billboard, apparently. I don't know if that was just rap records or hip-hop, but either way, he was well known to a certain generation, and he's shot dead on this date. I want to preface this by saying that I made a mistake in my original video saying he had a cross on his forehead. It did look like a cross to me, but if you look closely, it's more like a tree. And it is a tree. It's more clear when he first got the tattoo. Over time, it kind of faded. And it's just, I still think it kind of has the shape of a cross in there, but maybe I'm wrong. Either way, he's got a stamp right on his forehead. And think about, 666, the number of the beast, the mark on the forehead. He's certainly got a mark on his. So this man died completely by the numbers, the same numbers that I explained would be involved in this ritual, so I'll explain why. First of all, his rapper name, XXXTentacion, sums to 151 in the reverse alphabetic order. Remember just a month or two ago, Kanye West was banned from 105.1, and we always see these things repeat with Kanye West as well. We saw him with a Jesus crucifix statue in Hollywood. Using the alphabetic order, Jesus Christ equals 151. Now, as we saw earlier when we talked about Jesus Aguilar, he was 1,460 weeks old. Jesus Christ equals 146. And this rapper was 146 days after his birthday. This guy's debut album was called 17. And look at this. Using trigonal gematria, where we use the associated triangular numbers, XXXTentacion sums to 1717. He had a 17 tattooed on his head. He had an album called 17. And this is all bad news, man. The word kill, summing to 17. So that album, by the way, came out 151 days before his birthday. Jesus Christ 151. His next album came out 43 days before his birthday, and Jesus Christ equals 43. So I mentioned how crucifixion of Jesus Christ was really this was the big kicker as far as why I thought something would happen on this date. You got that 303 gematria in English and Jewish. 303, Jesus dead on the cross at age 33. His final album was released on the date March 16th, written 316. Remember, Jesus in Hebrew is 316. And that was a span of 3 months, 3 days before he died. In reduction, crucifixion of Jesus Christ equals 123. This rapper was born on January 23rd, written 1/23. Shot and killed outside of a motorcycle dealership, which sums to 1,023. Perhaps it's a coincidence, but I don't think so, because his first album was released on his first week of being 1,023 weeks old. So it's always appropriate for rappers to be involved in these rituals. The word rapper sums to 74. And so does the word Jesus, cross, gospel, etc. So think about the date too, 6/18/18, June 18th, 2018. You already have a 6 in the month, June, right? 6. Well, then if you add 6 plus 6 plus 6, you get 18. And here we are in the 18th day of the month in the year 18. Well, this guy's rapper name was XXX Tentacion, and X in Pythagorean numerology sums to, or is 6. It's the 24th letter. 2 plus 4 equals 6. So XXX summing to 18, dying on the 18th day of the month in the year 18. In the reverse alphabetic order, Jasse Onfroy, which is his real name, sums to 180, and this reflects the number 18. Another look at his rapper name, summing to 61, reverse reduction, Jesus 61, reverse ordinal. And as far as this 666, if you multiply 6 times 6 times 6, as many of you know by now, you get 216. And his full name, Jasse Dwayne Onfroy, is 216. This is why the guy was stamped with this number, this XXX name. Even his initials, JDO 11, like Jesus 11. So then an arrest was made a couple days later. And it's interesting, you know, we talked about the number 22 a lot in that shooting at the Trenton Art Festival, remember? Well, here we get the arrest of a 22-year-old man, and his name is Dedrick Williams. And this sums to 253. We saw earlier this is the 22nd triangular number. But what I like even better is that in the alphabetic order, his name sums to 152. So once again, the name of a shooter sums to the same as the city in which the shooting occurred. Deerfield Beach, Florida, where XXX Tentacion was killed, summing to 152 alphabetic order. So as far as this XXX, remember this is a roundabout way of coding 666. And in numerology, remember 666 is the 36th triangular number. Every number 1 through 36 summing to 666. The name Dedrick, the name of the killer here, Dedrick equals 36 in reduction. There seems to be like a number of the beast riddle here with the number 313 also. Interesting that the name Dedrick equals 115 in Jewish Gematria. This is the same as killing in the same method. Also, the reverse alphabetic order, 115. Man alive. The charge he got wasn't just for murder or first-degree murder. It's called murder dangerous, depraved without premeditation. Very odd, right? Well, notice how this sums to 523. And 523, jeez. What the heck? 523 is the 99th prime number. And I point this out because this brings us back to the number 13. 13 summing to 99. This is our main hoax and ritual code. And just look at the picture for yourself. Supposedly he was shot in his car, but there's no bullet holes, no broken glass, no blood. Certainly a guy who was shot and killed would leave a single visible blood stain, but this car looks brand new. It looks undriven almost. So it's just sad what people accept for real news, you know? Man. I don't know what's going on. All right. That's what I get for opening my window, I guess. It's like the first nice day with no rain in a week. And I'm just getting hammered today. So, hammered with allergies. I'm not getting drunk. I'm not doing that. That's for next week. All right, so we had a second rapper died, shot and killed on the same day, this time in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So while XXX Tentacion was shot in Florida, this guy died in Pennsylvania the same day. Supposedly completely unrelated. All right. So Jimmy Wopo, this guy has some interesting numbers as well. And what I want to point out is that the numerology of this guy really ties us back into the Tupac and Biggie deaths back in 96 and 97. Remember, Biggie, which sums to 39, he died on the same date as an eclipse, a total solar eclipse over the continent of Africa. And that date was March 9th, written 3/9. In the reverse alphabetic order, both blood sacrifice and total solar eclipse sums to 257. This man was no doubt a blood sacrifice for this total solar eclipse. When he was shot and killed, he was 257 months old. Now, 257 is the 55th prime number. And if you measure from his birthday on January 13th, the 13th day of the year, it was 5 months, 5 days after his birthday. In single reduction, the word sacrifice sums to 55. But what's really interesting is that Jimmy Wopo, born January 13th, 1997, this was exactly 55 days before the notorious B.I.G. was shot and killed himself. And, think about it. Biggie equals 39, Eclipse 39. In septenary, sacrifice equals 39. Well, using the reverse alphabetic order, Wopo equals 39. And he died 3 months, 9 days after the anniversary of Biggie's death. Earlier, I talked about the number 318. Remember, this was in the Jesus Aguilar equaling 318. Nope. Well, we're going to look at the 318th prime number. It's 2,111. And between the death of Biggie and Jimmy Wopo is 21 years, 101 days. Again, like 2111, the 318th prime number. So Jimmy Wopo, in the alphabetic order, summing to 104 reverse. He was shot and killed in his hometown of Pittsburgh, which sums to 140 ordinal. This 1414, this is in the Gematria of total solar eclipse. 104 reverse reduction. It seems to be connected to Tupac also. He died the 1,004th prime number of days after Tupac. His full name was Trayvon Deshaun Frank Smart, which sums to 142 reverse reduction. That's the same as eclipse sacrifice in ordinal. 142. Also, Trayvon Smart sums to 73 in reverse reduction, and we commonly talk about this number, 73 being the ritual sacrifice in reduction, and using the alphabetic order, sacrifice summing to 73 as well. As far as this being an eclipse-related ritual, in Hebrew, eclipse equals 156. This man died 156 days after his birthday. And, think about the whole 666 thing with Tentacion, that rapper. 666 equals 156. So these two deaths certainly connected. There's a little bit more to this. The number 213 was very significant in the death of Tupac and Biggie. Rapper Jimmy Wopo, in the alphabetic order, sums to 213. And his real name, Trayvon Smart, with capital letters. Trayvon Smart, also summing to 213. Now, in this Francis Bacon cipher, his name sums to 191, the 43rd prime number. Remember, he died exactly 43 weeks after the eclipse. So there's a few more notes on this death. Certainly some racist coding in his name as well. Are these guys really dead? That's the question, right? I mean, it certainly doesn't look like the rapper was shot in that car that they showed us. No signs of blood or anything. I got a lot of comments saying that it looked fake, but I never saw any video of anything happening. I don't know what they were talking about. So it could be just another record industry ritual where they fly someone away, but it's just weird. I mean, the guys are only 20 and 21 years old. You're telling me they're already at a place where they're going to fly away to an island for the rest of their life? It just seems unlikely. You know, these guys could really be dead. So I noticed my video got a fair amount of views. It was like 13,000 as of yesterday. I have like over 300 YouTube notifications that I haven't responded to yet. It's kind of overwhelming. You know, I've been busy at work getting ready to, go on break for a little bit, making sure people can do my job as a backup, and just been doing a lot. And I don't know where I was going with that, but time is a little short lately for me, so I haven't been able to keep up on everything. Speaking of not keeping up, not keeping up with the PowerPoint on the right side here. My bad. All right, so this brings us to Big Van Vader, famous professional wrestler, maybe one of the best super heavyweight wrestlers of all time. Certainly one of the best, if not the best. Vader dead at the age of 63, and this is a death where, I put it in the murder by numbers category, but I'm willing to believe that this guy died a natural death. He was 63 years old. He wrestled at a weight of 450 plus pounds for basically his entire career. This guy was banged up, and he was wrestling even just like up through a year or two ago. He was diagnosed with congestive heart failure, got a different diagnosis that was good enough that he felt like he could wrestle again, and ultimately succumbed to pneumonia, which we'll mention at the end here. So here we're going to talk about Sumerian Gematria. In Sumerian, which is the alphabetic order times 6, Big Van Vader sums to 630. In numerology, this is a 63. Vader dead at the age of 63. In this method, Leon White equals 666. Again, the 36th triangular number. And including the end date, he died 36 days after his birthday. This 36-day span is also 1 month and 5 days. Using the alphabetic order, Big Van Vader equals 105. In reduction, you get the inverse, 51. All right. Not including the end date, it was 35 days after his birthday, and he's dead on a life lesson number of 35. So a couple weeks ago, I did a video talking about the moon matrix and how I'm starting to believe that the moon has some sort of mystical power that's helping create our reality. And I don't just say this for no reason. I say this because years of studying Gematria, both in the mainstream and my own life, has led me to this conclusion. And how interesting is this, right? You had this guy Vader, and his big move was the moonsault. And just as a side note, my last name, Takori, equals 99 and 90, just like the moon. And I used to do backyard wrestling back in high school, and my finisher was a moonsault, right? So you have the numbers of the moon in my name already. And how weird is it that in Hebrew, the moon equals 223? This guy's full name, Leon Allen White, summing to 223 reverse and 1223 Jewish. And what do you know? He's over 450 pounds, but could still do a moonsault. That's pretty wild, right? By the way, this 223 is the 48th prime number. His common name, Leon White, summing to 48 in reduction. And this is another number associated with the moon. The Latin name for the moon is Luna, which sums to 48. And his most recent birthday had these moon numbers, 48, and then you had the 21 and 57. Moon summing to 21 and 57 ordinal. Nothing makes you feel nerdier than having to constantly blow your nose while you're talking about numbers. Like, here you think I'm nerdy enough just talking number after number after number, and the guy's wearing glasses and blowing his nose. Can't help it, Truth Seeker. I am who I am. Earlier on, I mentioned how the moon and Saturn are very connected. This guy's also got some interesting Saturn numbers, too. Vader's birthday with a full numerology of 93, like the planet Saturn in ordinal. The speed of Saturn, let's see if it's still different. km per second. I'm pretty sure it still says 9.68 kilometers per second. Yep. Average orbital speed of Saturn has changed, but it used to be 9.69, and this is an significant number. Well, in English extended gematria, Big Van Vader equals 969. Now, the ancient Semitic deity El is Saturn, the father of the heavens. And El in Hebrew sums to 13. Vader died on the 169th day of the year, like 13 squared. The 13th prime number is 41. Vader, with the V exception, sums to 41. And in septenary gematria, Big Van Vader equals 41. So that's 2 septenary finds, by the way, in this video. I assure you that's it. As far as him dying from pneumonia, this sums to 108. In the alphabetic order, this another number significant with the moon. Full moon summing to 108, both ordinal and reverse, just like geometry. In satanic gematria, pneumonia equals 42, or 423, which is the same as the moon, English extended. Also, these numbers coded into the headline, WWE star Vader dead at 63. In the alphabetic order, with these numbers reduced, 63, or actually full calculation, so this 63 gets added into it. This headline sums to 257. Remember, blood sacrifice and total solar eclipse, both 257. So speaking of eclipses and people dying, it's just like such a dark thing for me to discuss on this channel. Just speaking of people dying in relation to eclipses, like we all seem to do, I guess. We had a Google Doodle earlier this week of Octavia E. Butler. And this was celebrating her 71st birthday. She was born in the year 47. So why her 71st birthday? Well, to begin with, the name Octavia equals 71 alphabetic order. In the reverse order, Octavia equals 118. Now, this is an interesting number because, as I commonly bring up, death and homicide both sum to 118. And Octavia Butler dead 118 days before her birthday. In the reverse alphabetic order, Octavia E. Butler sums to 224. And look at the date she died. If we check out her Wikipedia page, she's dead on February 24th, 224. Octavia E. Butler, as her name is presented to us, sums to 224. Now, in the standard alphabetic order, Octavia E. Butler sums to 154. And in this method, ritual sacrifice sums to 154. She's got several connections to this number, 73 through her Gematria. But perhaps most interesting of these is in Satanic Gematria. Octavia Estelle Butler sums to 927. And in our square number cipher, which produces usually the largest numbers out of any of these ciphers, the word sacrifice equals 927. Her birth date, written 6/22 here in the United States, written internationally as 22/6. The word sacrifice in English Gematria sums to 226. And we talked about this earlier. Crucifixion of Jesus, 226. The word sacrifice in reduction summing to 55. The date of her death, February 24th, was the 55th day of the year. And in the same method, Octavia E. Butler sums to 55. So the 55th prime number, again, 257. We touched on this multiple times already before this decode. When you tack her occupation onto her Gematria, and this is something I've been presenting a lot more frequently lately because I really think it's important. Writer Octavia Estelle Butler sums to 2570. And again, blood sacrifice, 257. Total solar eclipse, 257. Her full name, Octavia Estelle Butler, sums to 74 in reduction. This is the same as Jesus, Cross, Gospel, Messiah. The 74th prime number, 373 days. She died a span of 373 days before the next total lunar eclipse. That was on 3/3 of 2007. And think about how Jesus died at age 33. The word lunar, 33, eclipse, 33 in reduction. And not only that, but she died 33 days before the next total solar eclipse, the only one to have occurred in 2006. In Jewish Gematria, total solar eclipse equals 704. This is the opposite of Butler, which is 407. Her name, Octavia Butler. And she died 2 days after turning 704 months old. Notice how she was also born in the year 47. Total eclipse equals 47. In Hebrew, total eclipse equals 227. Using the alphabetic order, Octavia Estelle Butler sums to 227. When you drop her middle name, you even get 202 in the reverse alphabetic order. And 202 is the ordinal Gematria of total solar eclipse. So Google Doodle, once again, giving us a very simple, easy Eclipse sacrifice to decode. And I've missed a couple this year, but had to pick up on that one. All right, everyone, to cap this podcast off and dip under 2 hours again, which I'll probably be doing more often as this podcast progresses and I do less posts, we're going to look at a little history by the numbers. And, you know, in the World Cup spirit, I know Korea and Mexico just playing a game right now, or were playing a game when I started. USA and Ghana. This is where the U.S., a little bit of an upset here, beating Ghana 2-1 in the opening game of the 2014 World Cup. So I just wanted to run the numbers and just make sure soccer, you know, something goofy was going on with football, and absolutely that's what's happening. So this game was exceptionally notable for the fact that Clint Dempsey scored in the opening minute. The name Clint Dempsey equals 145 in the alphabetic order. This is the same as the word Catholic, 145, which might not be interesting had it not been for the fact that this game was 14 weeks and 5 days before the founding of the Jesuit order, also known as the Society of Jesus. Now, if you measure from the last anniversary of the Jesuit order, you get 262 days. Clint Dempsey's full name is Clinton Drew Dempsey, and that name sums to 262 in the reverse order. In the standard alphabetic order, Clinton Drew Dempsey equals 224. The Society of Jesus, same number, same cipher. And then look at his age on the date of this game, 11,422, the inverse of 224. In the reverse order, the Society of Jesus equals 235. This is a number Clint Dempsey does have in the Kabbalah, but what I want to point out is that the other goal scorer who won the game, John Anthony Brooks, his name sums to 235, also in the reverse order. This guy was actually a junior, and I commonly talk about how often we see people with the name Junior in the mainstream, like way, way too high. John Anthony Brooks Jr. equals 99 reverse reduction. He was 99 days after his birthday. And here he's scoring a goal for the United States of America, which sums to 99 reduction. In single reduction, United States of America 117, John Anthony Brooks Jr. 117, with all exceptions. His name in the reverse order also equals 261, which is the same as United States of America in ordinal. In the reverse order, America sums to 139 has a value of 139. John Brooks 139 days after his birthday. And here we're talking about the Catholic Church, which is based in the Vatican. In our Frank Baconist cipher, special shout out to Zenith of the Alphas, who I saw in the chat earlier, Vatican summing to 139. So both of the goal scorers in this game, John Brooks and Clint Dempsey, both born on a date with numerology of 33 when reduced. The name Dempsey equaling 33. You also have this riddle here. Clint Dempsey born on the 68th day of the year. The 68th prime number, 337. And John Brooks born on the date leaving 337 days in the year. In the reverse alphabetic order, Vatican sums to 119, a significant number that I've been talking about. And Clint Dempsey and John Brooks born 9 years, 10 months, and 19 days apart. You know, it's kind of got a double 911, 119 match there, if you know what I'm saying. All right, everybody. So that was your dose of history by the numbers for this week. I'm going to be signing off with a a song from a group called Mogwai. And this is a band I used to really, really enjoy. I still enjoy a lot of their music. A lot of people call it math rock, which I kind of think is appropriate considering the information that I'm sharing here on this channel. But they gave one of the greatest concerts I've ever been to in Chicago, and I think it's good stuff. So I'm going to play you out with that, Truth Seekers. Thanks to all those who stuck it through and watched the entire podcast or listened to it on Mixlr. Again, no podcast next week. We'll see you in July. Keep seeking and speaking that truth.